Oh, well, good morning, everybody. How the heck are we doing today, huh? I hope it is a good day wherever you happen to be sitting. I am solo today as Kevin is off and about. Uh, I think he's on vacation someplace, going to do things. He's out and kind of doing his own thing. So that's excited there. Um, well, actually, I think I'm about to be a liar. So I was a solo, but I just sent a message on someone who I just read some interesting articles about, and he might be joining us today. So let's see if Andy is available. Hey, Andy, how's it going? Oh, I can't hear you. So
I I just muted. Hey, how you doing?
good yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Awesome, awesome. Good to see you, man. Thanks for hopping in.
Well, as soon as I saw what this live stream was about and the blog post and the announcement yesterday, I just thought, well, because I've been using them for quite a while, that I wanted to watch. And of course, when he sent the link through to jump on, I'm not going to say no.
Okay, well, I'm yeah, happy to have you here because this is my first time through task flows. Okay, so I have I've been when they announced task flows and I've seen some pre-announcements on it. I'm like, I am all in. I love this, but I've been purposefully standing back and waiting for it to hit my tenant before I looked at anything. So we're going to get my experience. I think this is going to be a great live stream now. Of first time looking at it, and then I want to hear your commentary on like, oh well, this is how I use it, or like your feedback. Does that make sense?
Perfect for me. So, do you have it enabled?
I do have it enabled. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
so I can't. Yeah, so I'm not. Obviously, they've started to flick the switches, so it's not enabled yet.
Okay.
And my super secret flag to enable it doesn't work anymore because obviously they're doing the switch over. But I'm sure it's going to be there in a few days.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Microsoft Fabric's a big product, right? They've got servers all over the globe, right? And they start rolling them out. I am fortunate in that when I stood up my test tenant, uh, where that I'm operating in, I kind of knew the tenant that or the where they deploy first. So I strategically put my test tenant there so that I would get things before other,
Yeah.
as soon as they come out, right?
Hey, you know what? We all want to jump on the latest stuff, but you know what? I don't really mind if it's a day, a week. I'm patient. I'm patient enough.
Okay. Well, good, good, good. Because, well, frankly, it's going to be out there soon enough, right? And
Yeah.
all right. So, if you have task flows enabled in your environment, why don't you leave a little note in the chat? I'd love to hear from you if you're one of the lucky few, or if you're still waiting for this to be brought out. Before we go into it, though, I have a handful of things that we got to get through here. So first, we have a handful of rules. Okay, rule one: please prefix any question with a Q colon so that we can make sure that your question get answered. Andy and I are here not because, well, I guess actually we're here probably because we're learning about it too as we go, as especially me. Um, really want to answer your questions as we're getting into these things. So if you have questions or like how does this work or what our thoughts are, please post those inside of the chat. Rule two: please don't spam any questions. There's no need for that. We're pretty nice guys. I like to think we're pretty open to helping and answering any question. You don't need to like be spamming chats and stuff like that. Okay. All right. Okay. So Andy, you've been involved in the task flows since pre-launch. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All
So
right.
this
All right.
was so this was something that was quite different, right? Because it's above a technical process. So this is more about workflows. So this is kind of taking a step back from the actual technical part of it and looking at how are you constructing your data flow. So that's what really interested me. So yeah, so I was straight on that preview as soon as I could to work through it.
Yep, yep, yeah. And we're gonna be hitting into like the whole blog thing right here. So Andy shared the post out into the chat for people who are on YouTube, and that's great. If you're on one of the other social medias out there, that's great. We don't want to like forget you. I'm gonna, because we're also streaming on LinkedIn and X. So I've just posted that. That post is in theory supposed to go to everyone. So this is what we're going to be looking at. And good morning, Jason Campbell. How are you doing? Um, all right. Yes. And as Andy, as you said, announcing the public preview of task flows in Microsoft Fabric. This is all about understanding how data is flowing through a given workspace. Um, uh, at one point in time, it was data flows, or it was data sets and reports, right? And that could get confusing enough as it is. Then we add in data flows, data sets, and reports, and that started to get increasingly confusing, right?
Hmm.
And then it went from data flows to data marts to data sets to, or semantic models to reports, and that was more confusing. Now we've added in a whole bunch of hui in here, and now it's horribly complex. So this is a huge advantage, um, that we're really like, that we're adding into the service to be able to understand what's going on, right? Um, now, uh, oh, Enterprise AR, I am at 9,500 subscribers, on my way to 10,000. So, really, if you have not subscribed, please do that. Share this stuff out. I really want to hit 20,000 this year. I'm not trending that way, but those things can change.
Hmm.
But it's good to have goals. So, all right, am I on base here, Andy? Anything I've missed so far in describing task flows, or why we want task flows?
Well, I mean, we can go into, what is available now in terms of task flows, when you're going through this process.
Yep.
But yeah, just to iterate that even before Fabric was, released into public preview and you could get your hands on lake houses and event streams and warehouses and pipelines, we already had quite a lot of Power BI artifacts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've kind of been hit with this sort of recent spate of, I'd say, productivity and layout functionalities. We've had folders.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got task flows. So there's no real shock there that they're releasing productivity tools, because the fact that now we're managing dozens and dozens of different types of items within, well, Power BI and Fabric workspaces. So this is almost a task flows is almost a required feature now to show all this together, because otherwise, so there's no, you can generate, if you use scripting to try and generate some overall architectural lineage between services, but you've not got anything that's really holistic across these different items. I mean, lineage within Power BI is, the physical lineage between the items. But if you want to group several of those items together into a process, you can't do that with lineage. So yeah, I think what you've said in terms of the process within task flows is spot on. But it really is from that, 1,000-yard view above what you're doing. I mean, there are some, limitations at the moment. It's just within it supports items within a single workspace. So, but I think cross workspace, is coming. We all know that, we're very much in the world of agile development with these products now. So at some stage, we'll get the sort of cross workspace. Um, so yeah, but yeah, looking forward to diving into it.
All right. Well, let's go take a look and let's run through this blog and let's work through what's in the service right now and what's not, and then we can kind of like provide commentary on here. So, First things first, the blog talks about the ability to hide and show the task flow in your workspace, right? Okay, which I'm a big fan of, right? Like if something's in here that's new, if it's getting my way, I want to hide it. So let's go take a look at how easy that is. So all I did this morning to prep for this is I opened up that link that I just showed you, and then I created a workspace for oh my gosh, where did my workspace go? I created a workspace brand new for task flow testing. Where are you? Okay, I
Does it
gotta
have the
find
name? Does it have the name Task Flow in it at all?
it.
Search
Does.
for it.
Well, it was supposed to.
All of my workspace names are so obviously named in terms of what's inside. Nothing to do with business. So just a quick answer to Fernando, who asks: is there any connection between lineage and task flows? No, not really. So you can see the lineage of the items and how they're connected together. So pipelines to lake houses and notebooks and so on and so forth. And obviously, you're adding those items to a task flow, but there's nothing in the lineage to say, oh, well, this item is attached to this part of the task flow. That's actually some feedback that I gave Microsoft in that it'd be really, really cool to be able to sort of because task flows are color coded, is to also have that color coding within the lineage as well. So you can
Mm,
see at what stage it's at.
well, that's fantastic. That's great. So, okay, I've got my workspace created, and
Mm,
first thing I notice is I do have the ability to move this up or down, and oh, here it is. Here's the collapse and expand button. It's right here, right?
yeah.
So that's what does it.
And I think that collapse and expand button is crucial because all of a sudden you're going to be coming into a workspace and you're going to be seeing not just your list of items, but a task flow interface. Some people are not going to like that. Some people are not
Mm-hmm.
going to want that in their workspace. So, Microsoft implemented that, closing of the view, no, not disabling it, just closing it. So you can see your,
Gosh,
your list of items and folders just like normal. But if your workspace and it is appropriate to have a task flow, unhide it, move it around, and you've got it there in the screen.
that's fantastic. I'm gonna say the first thing I'm also noticing here. I mean, we'll get to this in just a second. I love this. Right, so we can
Mm,
name our task flow, and we can call this the Kratos BI test task flow, and I could provide guidance, and I could talk about like what is the purpose of this flow, right?
hmm
This is a demo, right? So but whatever, right? I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
write in the service, I could add in commentary on this.
And in
That
fact, that's probably the most important thing you need to do with task flows is
yeah.
because it's not a technical process, it's more of an architectural process. It's adding the detail to your task flow. It's adding the descriptions because ultimately that's what they're there for.
Can I add a link? Oh, you can, but it is. At least I can copy and paste out
Yeah.
there. I mean, so like if you're using some other tool to like do like a bigger architecture or an reference architecture that you're designing or adding into, or a project, or maybe a Jira board, or how about a DevOps board where all this code is in, or that you want the code to be in, or so, you could add. I mean, just links to documentation on your project is could be endless in here, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Integrate it with DevOps, to provide that middle ground between documentation, tasks, and then what you're doing in terms of your actual item creation in Fabric. It's worth noting that unless anything's changed, you are limited to one task flow in a workspace. You can add any number of items to that task flow, but it's just worth noting. So if you've got multiple different processes within a workspace, you may have to represent that in a single task flow with different items.
Gosh, that might be a new best practice on organization.
What a single workspace for a single business process.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. Just brand new concept thinking this through, right?
mm,
This is live iteration on stuff. So, um, I don't know. Like always, what the boundaries are. Why should you have one versus many workspaces? Like that. I'm always thinking about how that should be managed because, yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
All right. What else do we notice? Look at this. We have a UI change up here, right? That is not the same as it was before. It's not radically different, but it is different here. So, all right. So we hit on the hide and show. Okay, easy enough to do, easy enough to drag and drop. Nice, easy to do. Okay, what we got next one is I'll talk about designing a data solution with a task flow. Task flow is a visual guide for building a solution, relationships of task, blah blah blah, task unit processing. Okay, I think I get this.
yeah. And it's just worth touching on that for a second in terms of designing a solution. There was a great blog post by Andy Leonard. So I know Andy Leonard as the sort of from SSIS, but of course, in SQL Server Integration Services, but of course now with Data Factory and Synapse Pipelines. And he was talking about frameworking or prototyping your data solution, your data flow, just using default tasks within Data Factory or a pipeline. And it's kind of feels like it's really good to be able to do that here. Is you might not necessarily know what you want to do yet in terms of end to end. You've got your piece of paper, or you've got Visio, or you've got whiteboard. Being able to actually go into the Fabric interface and say, right, okay, so I know that I've got these several sources here, and I want to land that into a lake house. Now, at that stage, maybe I want data scientists to be able to access that data. So I'm going to put a task for that, but then I'm going to carry on into my warehouse and semantic models. So I think it helps conceptualize.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think Cody is also bringing up like, and you mentioned it right, like we're gonna want to have these separate workspaces, but
Yes.
for now, MVP deployment, it's all in one. I think that does make sense. For like get it out.
Yeah.
Let's in private or in public preview. Let's provide feedback on like how this should be. How would you want it to be represented if we go back into like what it's going to look like?
Yeah.
How would you want to know that there's a boundary here? Is it a box around it? Is it a different color coding? How would you separate that?
And this is it. At the end of the day, we all know that Microsoft is a corporation, but there are people, right? There's
Hmm.
always people at the end of these things, designing, developing. They're wanting feedback, um, to provide as best in class products as they can. This is the first iteration. From my perspective, what I would love to see is task flows is not a workspace dependent item. Now, that's quite difficult for Microsoft to work out where in the UI to fit. Does it become a first class citizen in that left hand menu? Hey, that's not up for me to decide how they do it. But at some stage, task flows does need to have an abstraction above workspaces, because even if you had a simple two workspace structure where you had your raw, let's say we're talking about the medallion architecture, where we've got raw and maybe our cleansed data in one workspace, and then we've got our dimensional model, our gold, our curated in another workspace. All of a sudden, that kind of breaks our task flow, because now we've got two workspaces and we're not going to be able to visualize across all of those workspaces yet.
Yeah,
But you
I
could,
think it
you
would be
could,
great if we were thinking about how this could look though. Like let that be like workspace,
yeah,
that you're in. So star. and this would be your like downstream workspace, and this would be your
Yeah.
upstream,
Of
right?
course, yeah, and of course, then it would be dependent on if there were items in workspaces that weren't necessarily a linear flow of workspaces. But anyway, some indication of where the workspace is in. So you look at that grid
Mm-hmm.
underneath that shows you physically what items in your workspace are attached to which task flow, to which task. You can
Yeah.
see you could picture a column there with workspace
Yep.
with the
Oh,
works.
right.
Yeah, somewhere in that grid where you've got workspace, and you
Mm-hmm.
click on that workspace, and it'll take you to the workspace that task flow is in. But even it, even though at the moment, it works with one workspace, you could still use task flows to, let's say you've got three workspaces. Yeah, so you've got your workspace for raw, cleansed, and your dimensional data, for example. You could still use the task flow in one of those workspaces, let's say the dev workspace, to conceptualize and lay out your items. You may only be able to physically link the items in the current workspace, but you can still lay it out, right? You can still lay it out in terms of what you're doing for your overall, your overall workflow. It's just at the moment you just can't physically link an item in another workspace, which I'm sure will be coming at some stage.
Oh. All right. Well, clearly I'm doing this route live. I had that wrong. So, Andy, I don't know. Is Andy's camera frozen on everyone else's screen or no?
Oh, is my microphone still working?
I hear you just fine, but you appear frozen
Yeah,
here.
I think I'm frozen. As long as you can still hear me,
Yep.
I'll try and kick the camera back into action.
All right. You're not frozen in a bad place though, so it's
You know what? There's worse places to be frozen in.
right. Um. All right. So yeah, frozen but sounds good is what we're hearing from people. But yeah, I think there's lots of opportunity here. I think there's what just honestly, I am so excited about these capabilities. I'm excited about what this brings to us when it comes to working, and especially I think this adds something that we're going to get into when we do select a task flow here. This is fantastic because if we look at what is in here, we've got this general task flow. Oh, here he is,
Ooh,
and he is right. Oh, there we
there we go.
go.
Yes, now, yes. Yeah, carry on. We've now got the templates.
Yes. And so if we think about what Fabric is doing, which is democratizing the ability to do all of these complex things inside of our environment, but that doesn't, just because it does that doesn't mean it's easy for people to do or they have any idea where to even start with that. So like if I select six tasks, this or like you select any one of them and they have all sorts of different uh, design elements. So general is, it's got six tasks. This task flow guides you through the completion of high level data processing tasks within Fabric and items typically assigned to them. All right. Well, let's see. Okay, so it does that. Oh my. Look at that. All sorts of items. So if I
Hmm.
select this, oh look what happens. Oh
We get a
my.
template. We get a
I
we get an
get a
out of the
template
box
out.
template.
Look, so first thing, I'm going to get data. So, okay, I'm going to ask me for new items and look at this. It's going to filter to the items that I might use to get data.
Yeah. So it's interesting. If you were to click on store, you're not going to see notebook
Look at that. Lake house, warehouse, data mart,
preview.
vent house. Yeah. Yeah. Don't do a data mart. If you have fabric, if you're doing this, do a lake house or warehouse. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, why the heck do you like just kill that? Don't. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the concept of a data mart. Don't get me wrong, and I love the tech that's out there. But now we have something better. So
I think personally, I think a data mart was just a UI proving ground for the world of the fabric warehouses.
yeah, yep, I would
Yeah, yes,
agree
Donald.
completely.
Yeah, data mart is actually a choice.
Yeah, weird, 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 weird. Um, all right. Look at this though. And analyze and train. It's all stuff that you would. This is what you do there.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and of course, what Fernando just asked, if you have both lake house and warehouse of the different layers, well, no problem at all. I mean, you just that. So, for example, that store, so that second task across from get
Mm-hmm.
data, well, you can have another one. So, just Chris, as you were, yeah. So another one,
Oh.
hook it up to something else.
Can I drag it in there, or how does that
Yeah.
work?
So if you like SSIS or Data Factory, if you were to, there you go. Yeah. So you could put
Get
a
the.
pipeline in between the two stores. But as you showed earlier in terms of naming, click on that first blue store task again, right? Click edit, right?
Look at this.
Change it to raw, yeah, or bronze or whatever you like to call your layers.
Look, look, look,
I
look, look.
reference, yeah, exactly. I reference a Simon Whiteley video on the naming conventions of Medallion. But
How do you move them?
well, you should be able to drop it, drag, click and drag them.
Create a line.
Ah, okay,
Maybe not.
maybe not. I think it's all. The thing is, I wouldn't get too wedded on the layout because as soon as you've moved the boxes to exactly where you want them to be, if you were to exit the workspace and then come back into it later, it's kind of just going to do an auto layout anyway. So
Okay, okay.
it does not persist what you've done here in terms of moving things around, which is it's a bit annoying. But again, I don't think it wants to logically put things in from left to right.
Okay. That is fair enough. I could get. Can
Ah,
I?
there you go. Yeah. So as Cody says, you have to click within the box, not the outline.
But the ones from the template can't move. Oh,
Ah, yeah.
that
I
one
think
moves.
it's just
This one
clicking
moves.
with it. Yeah, as Cody said, it's just clicking
Prepare
within.
stuck. Everyone else moves. Prepare doesn't.
There you go.
All right. Hey, we're in preview, public preview, right? Some
Hmm.
of things to not work. That's the silliest of them to be terribly concerned with, right? So,
Yes.
okay. And so if I select the line, I mean, look, I'm figuring this out as I go, right? Like,
Yeah.
nothing here that is, uh,
Exactly. So if you had um, notebooks that were processing your data between bronze and silver, then you would add a a data processing task to the task flow, and then just connect up your bronze to that, and then from that to your silver.
and what triggers the auto relay out?
Well,
Just
so
leaving it?
let's say you just exited and came back in again. Or
I want to trigger it, right? Like we're purposefully doing this. Oh,
okay, so
well, now it remembers. Good.
maybe on certain maybe on certain occasions where it wants to reorder. So Brent says we noticed that the lower display pane is a little weird with items in folders. Will only show the current folder, not everything in the workspace. Ah, as in if you had an item in nested folders, it's not showing the full folder path. Is that what you mean? You don't see what's in the folders. Okay.
I kind of like this. Right? Like, I mean, this is nice. I mean, now I've just created, I started with a template and like I was able to create, to like go and customize it to how I want it to work. Right. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. And now, of course, if you then already had existing items, you can link them to those existing items or create them from scratch. So what I would, so what one of the bits of feedback that I gave Microsoft, and again, this is just sort of pie in the sky wishes, is that if you had or could create your own templates in terms of your layout, and then you went in and instead of assigning already created items or clicking create an item, is that you just specified and you said, well, my raw layer is a lake house, my silver is a lake house, and then my gold is a warehouse. I have, a notebook here and a pipeline there. But then when you actually instantiated the task flow, it would just create the items for you behind the scenes. But like I said, you know, that's wishful thinking at this stage for the public preview.
yeah.
But yeah, so
And Cody is calling out. Uh, so this is my notebook. I've had it for, well, since Game of Thrones was good. You could see it was, I don't know, season 3 of Game of Thrones. I got this. So I've been taking these notes for a long time. I've been using this page for a long time. You've probably seen this. This is the development process.
oh,
Everything starts out kind of sucking, then it becomes okay, and then it becomes great. Okay, so like we are somewheres on this. Honestly, from what I'm seeing, there's a lot that falls into the great and okay categories, and only a handful of things where I'm like, oh, that sucks. But I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if it sucks. Like, I think we might be at okay or great in a lot of these cases.
what for the task flow functionality?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say okay. I'm going to say okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to say we're on the okay path.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, what I would say is, I know that some people can get a little bit frustrated with Microsoft in terms of requesting features and wanting things. But you know what? The more voices, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Go on to the Fabric forum. Go to the ideas site. If something's, search for something. If you want to add, your voice behind some functionality in task flows. But yeah, you've got to just keep going in terms of requesting this stuff. But
Yeah.
I really think that this is
And
the
honestly, we say it all the time, but it's super easy, right?
yeah,
Search for your idea. If it's there, vote for it. If it's not, add one. I like super easy, barely an inconvenience. You can do it.
yes, yeah, and obviously to Donald's question about adding existing items, then yes, yeah, like you said, I mean, if you were to bring up I mean, you don't have any existing items in your task flow, but we could maybe create.
Well,
Um,
let's go to my global data workflow, and we can go ahead and we can look at all the stuff that I have in here. So
mhm.
I've got my pipelines, my lake houses, and my data set. So I could go ahead and I could say, select a task or a flow. Let's do the medallion architecture. Let's see how that works. Okay. So this is to organize data in a lake house or warehouse while progressively improving its structure and quality through each layer from bronze to silver to gold, resulting in high quality data. It's easy to analyze. Okay, so let's do that. Oh, look at
Yes,
this.
yes.
Some
Now you've got those
beach.
purple tasks, which are the transform.
Oh, look at
Yeah.
that.
Of course,
Look at that. Oh.
And of course, you could detach your high volume data to add in, a task flow that represents your real time.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's just add that, right? So it's a get data, so it's another thing that we add in, right? And so this would be our real time. And we edit this to call it real time. All right, and we drag that in. And now we've got our real time items. We've got our high volume. We've got low items. Now we got our bronze data, initial process. Holy cow, this is just, whoa, I didn't know that. What was that? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now from your items, your tasks, it's a case of, yeah. So for example, there you go. So on your real time, you would associate your event stream
Right.
item with it.
Okay, and so there is, and I forget what button I clicked to interact with it. Is it Alt or Control 4? No, Shift 4? No, I don't know. But there's two items, one which is a new item and one which is a paper clip.
Yep.
Paper clip allows me to select. Okay, so here's my copy assist job that copies all of my data from my source into my data.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now, so I've been able to copy that in.
And the thing you've got a single lake house in your workspace.
Right.
Now remember, this is also process. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't just physical items being linked to each other. So, for example, you could have a single lake house that
Mm-hmm.
contains both your bronze and your silver data. So you could associate, well, actually, here we go. So,
Right. So I'm saying
yeah,
it's all in here, which would potentially
yeah.
like imply.
Well,
Oh, does
so
it?
so your initial process. So if you click on that initial process again,
Yep.
you're there. So you'd probably, you wouldn't want to associate any of the lakehouse objects. You'd associate, your data processing method
Mm.
for that. So if you had notebooks or something like that, but you've got your bronze task and your silver task, but they're both attached to the same lake house. Because you may have one lake house that has, your raw plus your cleanse data in it as well. So, think process rather
Mm-hmm.
than just linking physical items together, because that's what the lineage view does. So if you can you
Right.
click on the lineage view in the top right
Yeah.
top right corner, because we've got the lineage view, right? We can see, that semantic model is connected to that SQL endpoint that's connected to the lake house. The pipeline is connected to a SQL server and a lake house, but it's a kind of a
Mm.
physical connection. We can't see that global lake house has both raw and cleansed in it. If it did, if we go back to the task flow, well, we're representing the fact that we've got two different zones of data, possibly in a single lake house. So someone can click on the bronze data
Mm-hmm.
and see. So if you just clicked on the task itself, So if you cancelled that and just clicked on the task,
Yep.
then if you drag up the window underneath, then okay. So what we can do is we can,
But the silver is here.
yeah, silver. But let's say that you also had raw in your global lake house. If you clicked on
Mm-hmm.
bronze, if you clicked on the little tag or the little paperclip,
Yeah.
and then added the global lake house, I just want to check something.
It will move it off of silver.
So okay, right. So click on that silver again. Yeah, okay. So it does. That's slightly disappointing. I guess you
Yeah.
can't. Yeah. So
But
So then,
well,
so
hang on
then,
a second here, though. Let's think about this. Hang on. Let's go. So so for those of you who are not part of like big architectural meetings all the time with people, one of the things that happens is big debates around best practices and if something is a good practice or not. So I'm going to ask you. Oh, I still am talking about submitting ideas. Let's take that down, Andy. If we're thinking about managing our environment and our lake house and understanding where there are security bounds or not, does it make sense to potentially have different lake houses at each of the layers or different storage mechanisms and potentially different security mechanisms at each of the layers as to who has access to what? So, for example, if I've got my raw or bronze layer, I've got my central enterprise team manages all the pipelines and my data teams manage that load. And no one really needs to access the raw layer, but maybe I need to have read access to the bronze, right? If I've got those separated out, that allows me even from within those subdomains, like because I don't think they allow for schema security yet. They will at some point in time. I don't remember, right? But even then, we could do further breakouts to the schemas to the domains, and then we can control that at each layer of our solution. So
hmm?
having a separate lake house, I'm not sure that's a bad thing. This might be a good thing for ultimate flexibility on solutions. What's your take there?
So Microsoft have got a deployment guideline document. So I'll drop it. I'll drop the link in um, to the chat in a bit. But we've got two issues here. So you've got the security of the items in the workspace, and then you've just got the number of workspaces themselves. So we know
Mm-hmm.
if the more basically the more workspaces that you have, then the more complication you have in terms of the items across all of these different workspaces. Now you can wire them up, deployment pipelines, so on and so forth. But for the ultimate degree in security separation, then, well, if you need people to have workspace access roles,
Mm-hmm.
then you pretty much got no choice than to move items across workspaces. So we look at the workspace roles such as admin, member, contributor that are required to develop the warehouse and lakehouse solutions. If you really don't want a data engineer to have access to one lakehouse versus the other, then you may need to split those across workspaces. And maybe some organizations will have that as a requirement. I mean, we do have the item level security as well, but the problem is, as soon as you give a user a workspace level role, that kind of just wipes out all of your item level permissions. So you're not going to be able to if you've
Don't.
got if you've got three lake houses in a workspace and you give a user contributor permissions, well, that's it. So they're gonna they're gonna be able to access all of those lake houses. I mean, Fernando's just said the recipe security for folders as well, and I don't know. I'm not I'm not sure I'm a fan of security on the folders because then it's starting to be a little bit like SharePoint, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I'm inclined to agree uh, with you, Andy. I do not like how complex and convoluted SharePoint can get if you're not managing it appropriately. And then adding in smaller, finer grain controls lower is a bit of a challenge. So, um,
Yes, and of course with the, I mean, if we link that back to the usefulness of task flows, obviously task flows are not taking into account security posture. They're not taking into account who can access those different items in that workflow. So I think
Mhm.
that's sort of an important consideration. It's not really to kind of show who's going to be able to access what, as well. SharePoint everything. Um,
Please don't.
yes. Well, the obviously part of the folder functionality is subfolders as well. So here's a question for people in terms of folder design. Are people looking at creating folders and storing specific objects in? So, for example, a folder called pipelines and a folder called notebooks, or are they creating folders with a solution inside? So, if you go into a folder in a
Mm.
workspace, it could have a pipeline, a lake house, and a semantic model, sort of building
Oh,
a
that's a great
solution.
question. Is that in effect your task flow organization?
Yeah, but it would be a very hard to visualize organization, which I think there was a question earlier on about folders, seeing seeing the folder in the task flow itself to understand, well, where does that item sit within there? I think they're complementary. The task flows and folders, they
Yeah,
work together because task flows don't really care about where the item is. It just wants you to show that these items are linked together in this flow.
I just noticed something. Take a look at this. This is cool. All right. So maybe I need to zoom in more. Okay, so we got bronze data, right?
Hmm.
Silver data. Is it gold data? It is not. It's golden data.
So
I
you've got golden there
yeah,
rather
that's
than gold.
right. I like that. I like that. I think that's a better name than gold data. Golden data. I don't know.
It does make me think of that extra layer I think you've talked about, which is was it the platinum layer?
Yeah. Well, so I consider the semantic layer is your platinum layer or
Right.
diamond layer or something along those lines, right? That it is
But there you
like
go. So add in your so what's interesting, I'm not sure because obviously I haven't been haven't been able to get hands on
oh
since it's
yeah.
been released into into public preview, but on the if you were to click on the store item. There you go. So
Oh,
here's
look at that.
yeah. So like we said earlier, obviously we've only got one task flow available per workspace, but that doesn't mean you can't have multiple processes on that single canvas, that single task flow. You'll probably need to see if you can move your lambda a little bit sort of further down, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Can I grab multiple things? You cannot.
Yeah. I mean, has anyone used Azure diagrams? I think it is just available at azurediagrams.com. It's
Oh,
not a
that is.
Microsoft tool, but it's built by people who work for
Oh,
Microsoft.
okay. So we can do multiple task flows in one place. Just it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's.
Or, yeah, you're essentially creating multiple tasks linked together in a single task flow.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, Donald. Yeah. Yeah. Azure diagrams. What was my point about Azure diagrams? Yes. So in terms of functionality, it would be nice to add maybe an annotation to our canvas.
Well, isn't that this on the side here?
Yeah, but
Like
yes, I
everything
suppose.
I
Yeah,
click, I can
it
edit and I can say,
brings up a
you
task
know,
details.
here is description or whatever, right? Like I could put that in on each one so I can give an outline. So I could just start with the defining it or defining the items. And oh, this is awesome. Where's my semantic model? Why can't I find that?
Well, so that is, I think, and we had some discussions about this.
Mm-hmm.
If you click on store data, so click on any of your, yeah, so bring that in. Look at the task type. Look at the recommended. So semantic model.
Okay.
So I'd kind of argued that semant. I don't really want semantic models in the store data, even though they store data. Therefore,
And I would
analyzing.
like to think that we're working towards maybe today we're using many import models, but
Yeah.
someday, hopefully sooner than later, we get to using direct lake for all these and we get rid of that. But I
Mhm.
mean, they don't even have it. They list it as something in there, but they don't even
Yeah.
list it there,
Yeah.
right? So where's my
There you go.
semantic model? They don't even have it. Aha! Bug. No semantic model.
So you have to
I
assign it
can't.
within the drop down.
You can't. You just have to describe what it is. Oh, you're saying we just have to attach it? So I could do this and nope, it doesn't let me pick my
Yes, I
semantic
suppose that would
model.
be, yeah, sort of custom semantic models.
Yeah, interesting. All right, well, I mean, fair enough. I mean, this looks really nice. Let me actually create a new workspace here because I want to see something. Can I do from raw? I mean, could I start fresh and have nothing? So, like, okay, this allows me to start with a whole bunch of things,
Yeah.
right? But
Prototype prototype what is going to be in this workspace.
yeah, how do I? Uh, so all of these are different ones that are here. Can I just new? Nope, can't.
Well, yeah. So to Fernando's point, they should have a category called model.
Yeah.
What model? A semantic model, an ML model.
Mm,
I think my question to Microsoft was, do you want to keep semantic models in the store task, or do you want to associate it to the analysis task, which they currently have for machine learning models as well? So
mm,
they are really, you know, linking semantic models to the whole store principle. But of course, semantic models are so much more, right?
right. Right.
And then
Right.
when we have things like the metrics hub as well, where would that sit?
Mm, well, that's a good point. Yeah, it's unfortunate that we don't have that semantic model in here, but um, I kind of wish we could start from scratch. But it
Yeah.
looks like we have to start from one of their foundational pieces.
Yeah.
Um, but that's okay. We could delete them, right? If I just delete them,
Just delete them, do whatever you need.
oh, then you go back to nothing.
Yeah. Of course,
So you have to have what's that?
yeah, the question is around source controlling these things,
Hmm.
making task flows available outside of the world of Fabric in documentation.
Right.
Um, because at the moment they are a first class citizen within Fabric,
Hmm.
but other than a print screen, and maybe because I've done this with PowerPoints in terms of feeding back, is taking a screen grab of the specific workflow and putting that into PowerPoint. So some integration there would be really good.
Mm. Yeah, be able to just capture this workflow someplace.
And of
But
course,
we,
for those that love and who doesn't, source control and
hmm
versioning, we need something like that as well to be linked in. because we may have a first version of a task flow, then maybe a second version as we evolve what we're doing. But I guess this is the question of, this is a tool to describe, maybe prototype, but ultimately to describe a process that you have within Fabric, rather than, I suppose, designing it as you go along, because you might have different designs, right? So if you've only got one task flow per workspace, it's not really a tool too much for designing something. You can, maybe it would work for prototyping, but I think its strength comes in when you're documenting an overall process so that someone can come in and see how these items are linked together. And it's going to be
Yeah.
more important once we have a cross workspace as well, because then, with people that have got, because we've got a task there that says visualize data. Well, that's going to be reports, right? So they're not going to sit in the same folder, sit in the same workspace as the lake house or warehouse, itself, and the semantic models as well. So yeah, so I think lots to come with this.
Yeah, and I think that kind of addresses Fernando's question here, which is
Mm,
what are the limitations and considerations? I mean, I think we've been kind of running through this as we go, right? Like, uh, it's single workspace. Um, some of the UI, while most of the UI works great, we've run into a handful of issues there. We're missing the semantic modeling for some reason. That just gets wrapped up in there.
yeah,
Um, I mean, other than that, it's a kind of great feature. I think. I
it's
mean, I
it's a,
think.
yeah, it's a
I,
feature that Microsoft have added that is above the technical processing, which is a nice little sidestep for them as well.
yeah, no, I see. Fernando's saying, hey, the limitations are at the bottom of the documentation. And if we go down to the bottom, they're not really talking about limitations. That's. Oh
If
wait.
Yeah, let's have a look at the documentation. They would
Okay.
normally
Overview,
have
test type connector. Uh, Position of tasks and the task flow canvas is persistent. However, due to no the new tasks added to the canvas, all
ah,
tasks aren't connected to a task that will return to the default position. Okay.
so connect
All
up
right.
your tasks before you add the new task.
Creating pagina reports and semantic models from the task isn't supported. Well, we found that out. Yep. Creating reports from a task is supported only if a published semantic model is picked. Okay. All right. Um, No, I mean, I think we kind of ran into these, but I would say I'm not thinking of these as like deal breakers and how
No,
we interact with it. But
no, no.
I am going to
Like I
share
said,
like
yeah, that whole
docs here.
cross workspace thing is,
Hmm.
can be mitigated by the fact that you're just not linking certain task flow items to, or certain tasks to the items themselves at this stage. But you could probably still, in the description, put where the item is and what the item, where the item is located and what the item is. But I just think it's a great first version.
Yeah, I completely agree, and uh, just because I think we've been through. It's our last question. I think we've answered all the other questions that have come up. Even if not directly. But right now, you can't default a task to an item because you add the task, then you add the items,
Mm.
and the naming isn't,
Yeah,
it
they're
doesn't
separate.
just
Yeah,
inherit it. So,
no, they're completely separate.
yeah.
Yeah, the task flow is about the process name, and the item is about, the specifics of what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, all in all, I'm giving this two thumbs up. I think this is really
Mm,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like it. I like taking a step back and just having a
Hmm.
look at how I'm linking these things together after I've been busy creating all of these items. And yeah, barring a few things that will come in the future, I'm going to be, honestly, well, I was on the public preview, as soon as it's enabled back into my tenant, I will be using them across all of
Yeah.
my workspaces.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, Andy, thank you for like dropping everything and coming in. I think this was a great conversation. Thank you,
Hey,
sir.
you know what? I'm always going to turn up if I have something to say on it.
All right. Well, you have the link. It doesn't change. So just feel free to pop in and love hearing from you. All right.
And it's great questions from everyone as well. I think, yeah, it's one of these things that I really think is of benefit. And if people
Hmm.
get stuck in and find what they can and can't do, and especially feedback to Microsoft, then yeah, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Amen, buddy. Amen. And thank you guys all for joining us. We are at time. We got to get the heck out of here because I don't know about you, but I got a busy day. All right. Have a good weekend. Peace.
Bye, everyone.
Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.